I recognize your voice, yeah.
It's funny how voice and
Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started here. A couple of little preliminary things before we get going. Because this type of a community meeting is part of the pre-application requirement for Island County, we're recording the meeting. That's something that we're asked to do. And so as we get into this a little bit more fully, we'll have a time to open it up for questions. If you'd like to ask a question, which we certainly welcome, we are going to ask you to step up and speak into the microphone so that we can understand the question on the recording. Okay? I want to welcome you. I'm John Rice, and my role here at the church is administrator. And the purpose of this meeting is to simply communicate to our neighbors what we're doing here at Camino Chapel, some plans that we have been thinking about for a couple of years, actually probably even longer than that, in relationship to some expanded facilities here on the site of Camino Chapel. So what we're going to do here is I want to introduce some folks that are with us tonight, and then make a brief presentation about Camino Chapel itself. Best I can for someone that really has not been around here for that many years, but picked up a few things along the way. And then go through the actual proposed plans as far as what we're looking at for the church. With us tonight are some folks that have been working with us a great deal. I'd like to introduce Larry Brolight from Brolight & Peterson in Linwood. Their firm has worked with our church in doing what we would call a master plan. That involves really taking a look at all of the different activities, whether it's ministry activities of the church or community uses of the facilities, and mapping out where do we have specific needs and what are the best ways that we can address that. And so through his efforts in working with a number of people from our church, we have a master plan which we're going to be showing you tonight. Also with us from Fakima and Kingma, civil engineering firm over in Oak Harbor, is Garth and Rebecca, and they will begin doing a lot of the civil engineering work for us. Actually, they were involved in the last development, not them specifically, but their firm was involved with the last development work that the church did in 1991, as well as Brolight & Peterson. Okay, just a little bit of a point of reference about Camino Chapel. Interestingly enough, Camino Chapel will be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. All 50 years located, here on this site. I guess beginning maybe with a slightly smaller building than this one right here, but this being sort of the flagship building built here actually in 1949. And just to put in perspective some of the additions that have taken place, there was a series of going that way, adding first this hearth room or fireside room, and then immediately behind that is a building, we call it Jackson Hall, which was originally the Sunday school area. It now actually houses our staff as an office complex for the church. And then immediately behind that is a gymnasium. That gym was actually built in 1980. So that's when, of course, a lot of the rapid growth was taking place on the island. I think that's when a lot of it began. And that gym was built as a multi-purpose center for the church. In 1985, the Christian Education Building was built, which is the building just to the south of that. It's a two-story building, approximately 14,000 square feet. And that provides all of our classroom space for both adult and children's Christian education. And the last addition that the church made was in 1992, which just simply dealt with some finishing some things aesthetically with the existing gym. There was a front entry that was built and a kind of a fellowship hall built on the very far east end of the room, and then some front area to our worship center and some side rooms that went along with that. So that brings us pretty much up to date with where we are right now as a church. The community continues to grow. The church continues to grow. Our outreach to the community in terms of use of the facilities continues to grow. For those of you who may live in the area, we sent out a notice, and in there we tried to list some of the different uses that we have of the facility. Up until the completion of the 2 new schools, we probably were the largest multi-purpose type facility on the, at least in this area of the island, and that has been a particular advantage to the community, being a Red Cross shelter and being able to offer space here for community meetings like Lions Club and Al-Anon and a number of different groups like that. From a ministry standpoint, it's a pretty multifaceted church. Yeah, we have our regular weekend services. Average attendance here on a Sunday is somewhere around 850 people on Sundays, and that's combined over 2 services. But really, I think where a lot of the growth is taking place in use of the facilities actually takes place during the midweek, particularly with a ministry that we have on Monday morning for young mothers, and they bring all their preschool-age kids with them. And then on Wednesday, something that's really been developing is a ministry for making our facilities available for homeschool co-op. Interestingly enough, registration for that this year has topped 200, and we were not able to accommodate all of the kids that really wanted to participate in that. The co-op homeschool really affects about 20% of the people that are a part of the co-op are part of Camino Chapel, and the rest of the families are families from the community that come and participate in that. We have another full house on Wednesday night for a kids program. We call it Awana, and that is reaching some capacity issues as well. So it gives you some perspective of what is happening here and gives you a little bit of background in why we're saying that we need to do some master planning to figure out where we go from here. Well, before we open it up for questions, let me take a moment here. We're going to put a couple of pictures up and give you some perspective of what has been involved in the planning process and what we have decided that we're going to do in making these additions. Next slide. I'm going to start over on this far side here. Larry has and his firm have helped us to understand that part of master planning is not thinking what do we need to do this year or in the next 5 years, but think ahead in the usage of the land that we own. Camino Chapel owns under 17 acres, 16 plus acres of land out here. And that's represented in the entire picture here. But one of the things that he challenged us to think in terms of is what is that eventual primary use that you may need to reserve land for? Figure out where it's best to put that. And then we'll deal with the improvements that you actually need to make now in light of the fact that it all fits together from a master planning standpoint. So while we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at this picture, one of the things that he helped us do, here's our existing gym, for those that are not necessarily familiar with our campus. Here is the existing Christian education building, and this is actually the building that we're in right now. What he helped us to see is that we need to reserve the land right here for the purpose of a future multi-purpose space, a purpose unknown. I guess we'll just leave it at that. That seems to make the most sense for something like that in the future. And you know, you're thinking years down the road as far as what that might be built. Okay? So that gives you a perspective. We started here by saying, all right, if we were to do something like that, that's where that would need to go. Therefore, dealing with the specific issues that were important to us right now, what do we need to do? Well, the three things that were very important to us were the following. First, to take care of some things that we needed to do to our existing facilities. While that's not a big deal, it still requires some permitting associated with it. For example, replacing a flat roof with a pitched roof. And there's just some practical purposes with that. There's some interior remodeling that we want to do and need to do. And some of that requires permitting. So that's being all tied into the project that we're doing right now. Mainly that's just enlarging restroom areas and common areas and so forth. The second thing that was very important to us was dealing with parking, and that was twofold: providing adequate quantity of parking. Quality of parking kind of fits into there too. We have a lot of gravel area in the back. We'd like to be able to pave that. And then another issue that Larry helped us to understand is that we could improve traffic flow during some peak times. For example, just before our 8:30 service in the morning on Sunday, we actually are showing here 2 lanes of traffic coming in, 2 lanes of traffic going out, and some drop-off points and whatnot. That just simply helps traffic flow. The other thing that this really helps us with is some safety issues, particularly during these midweek ministries when we have children getting dropped off out of here, they're running across oncoming traffic, and you can see the problem that would present. Okay, so combination of improving access in and then just simply increasing the amount of parking that we have. That's the second thing that we really wanted to accomplish. The third thing is simply expanding the amount of classroom space that we have for all these variety of things that we do, whether they're ministries for Camino Chapel or community purposes. And this blue area is the actual proposed addition to the church. It is a continuation of the existing CE building. You know, if you'd like, you can walk out there and kind of get the lay of the land there. There's an existing square CE building right over here. And out in front of it is a play area, and all of that would give way to an additional Christian education building heading out this way. Part of it is depending upon the funding that's available through the church, but part of it also is the practical nature of trying to maximize the amount of square footage that we can build on our existing footprint. Might be that we actually extend that over Jackson Hall and the hearth room that exists today. That would go away and be replaced with an additional 2-story structure there. This could be done in either one piece or 2 pieces, depending upon how funding occurs there. The things that would go on in that, it provides us dedicated space for our youth, both junior and senior high. Right now, we've pretty much displaced them from any sort of designated youth area. It gives us some enlarged office space. Some is an understatement. It gives us office space actually to accommodate all of our staff, which we're doubled up in some cases now. And then it gives us some additional larger common areas for larger classrooms, and then regular classroom-sized rooms for our children. All right. Go back to my notes here a second. One of the things that we're aware is important as we look at doing something like this within the community is trying to do something that is aesthetically pleasing to the community. And I think that's one of the That's one of the nice parts about this proposed addition. Larry has approached this from the standpoint, well, we don't really have a lot of architectural design. He's proposed this from the standpoint that we could get some common roof lines that will really help nest this thing together and not look a whole lot bigger than it really is right now. We're able to stay well within the height restrictions that are allowed out on Camino Island within this zone and the setbacks and so forth. And I think with proper landscaping and whatnot, it'll turn out very pleasing. And I think the other thing that we're very pleased about in looking at this proposal is the way it helps improve traffic flow within the area. Well, there's probably more things that I could go into, but let me just open this up here for question and answer. And the way I'd like to approach this, and really all we can do at this point is open it up for questions. We may have answers to your questions, but because this is fairly early on in the actual planning process, there may not necessarily be a lot of detail. One of the good parts about doing a community meeting like this is to learn what are the questions from the community, and helps us be able to address them as we go along in the process. So I'll just open it up for questions.
Well, it seems like with all that density of population in that one particular area, there's always the ingress and egress problem.
Yeah.
John, can you repeat the questions in the mic?
Okay. So the question, well, actually, it's more of a statement of just saying, yeah, when you have that kind of density of buildings in here, that there is also an intense density of traffic flow in here, and I think that's one of the things that we certainly want to address. That's very good. Any other questions or comments?
Are any of the elevation drawings done at this point that we can see?
The question was, is there any elevation drawings done? No, they're not at this point. We were just talking about that this afternoon as a part of the early process with Island County. We'll have to do some very basic things, but I suspect it's going to look an awful lot like what you see out there now.
Just curious about the roof line statement that you made, what that will conceptually looks like.
Yeah. Okay.
Another question. It seems like all of this planned and the way you have it there, you don't know what the county is going to allow you to do.
Yeah.
Now maybe these gentlemen that's in the legal, the engineering portion of it, may have more ideas what they're allowed to do and what we can do with this property.
As we've talked, within our congregation, off and on over the last couple of years, one of the things that we've really worked very carefully with Island County is working within what they call a ground coverage ratio that is going to be allowed. And we're pretty encouraged by what their council has been to us and what they will allow us to do. And this looks like it's going to come together pretty nicely. They've actually encouraged keeping some density so that you maintain a fair amount of open space. Actually, I think the requirement is a 50% open space or something like that. And that helps, really. I mean, a clustering of it actually helps in a lot of regards as far as what Island County requires.
The property next door is out of the question.
Well, we've, for now, it seems like,
You were thinking, it was talk that you were going to come from somewhere else to the north and have a road back here.
we've
Is
played,
that so?
yeah, we've played through a couple of different scenarios in our mind, depending upon availability of additional property. But at this point, it seems like doors are closed as far as acquiring a property either to the north or to the south.
So you can get by with what you have now.
Well, that's something that'll have to come out of the planning process, is to see what will they require from a traffic standpoint. One of the early steps in the pre-permitting process is to do what's called a traffic concurrence study, and they do traffic counts and pretty much give you information on what the impact would be and what we need to do if there's any adjustments and so forth. Hi.
I'm a little late.
That's okay. I know we'll be happy to repeat anything you'd like.
You see, I'm still not working with do you have copies of those graphs?
We could
Small ones?
We could certainly make that available to you. Sure.
Small ones, because it takes a little study that you can't do.
Yeah,
Reading
yeah.
like this.
For the sake of you missed kind of an explanation of what's going on. Let me identify what's existing and what's proposed so that that'll be meaningful to you when you look at
I
that.
did read I'm within 300 feet.
Oh, okay.
Notice, so you don't have to go through that anymore of these photos.
Okay, and what's your name, by the way?
Campbell.
Campbell. Oh, okay, all right, good.
hear
I
you.
recognized you, yeah. Okay, what you see here is, this is the building that we're in right now, which is Wayland Sanctuary. And there's an existing building somewhere right in here right now, which is it's actually our church office area. And then this is the gym, which is right behind. And then this is the Christian Education Building, which is located to the south of the gymnasium right out here. And the proposed addition is this strip right in here, more or less a continuation of the Christian Education Building and connecting with these buildings. One of the things we're trying to achieve is an interior access from every building, so you don't have to go out in the rain and all of that. All these important things we think about in Western Washington. And the other thing that is a part of the plan is to improve some traffic access in and out of the parking lot, enlarging the parking area a little bit more, paving some of the area that is not paved now, etc. Does that help kind of give you, I know you're very familiar with our property here. So.
Why did you have to go through all this just to do that with the back?
Well, actually, it is it looks fairly manageable on paper, but it actually is a fairly sizable addition. As I explained at the beginning, the purpose of doing something like this, it's an additional step in the Island County pre-permitting process. They like to see public comment on what we're doing before we go in for actual permit application. So, which is good. It's nice to know what our neighbors, are thinking.
What square footage are you talking about with the new extension?
I think there's approximately, it's about 16,000 square foot on one floor, and they're demolishing about 3,000, so on a ground area coverage, about 12,000 additional. It's on 2.5 floors, so it's additional 34,000 square feet, if my memory
Is the net addition.
Oh, so it's going to be 2 floors.
2
Yes.
floors.
Oh, okay, so 32,000.
I think so.
The existing, let me just restate the question so we have that for the record. The question was, what's the approximate square footage of the addition? And the answer was, it's about 16,000 square feet on one floor. Take away about 3,000 that would go away, so it's a net gain of a little over 12,000 square feet. The existing Christian Education Building is 2 floors as it sits right now, and this will come off so that actually on the very south end there will be a daylight basement area, so you could call that 0 floor or whatever you want to call it, and that'll be where the youth are. And then there are 2 floors above ground, so it'll basically match exactly the same elevation as the existing building. One of the things, if you're like yourself with getting the notice in the mail, the square footage numbers that we put in there, one of the things we've been focusing in on with Island County is ground coverage ratio. So that doesn't give you the total square footage of all floors and everything, but that's what Island County was particularly concerned about in the initial stages.
One other thing that this accomplishes for the church is it gives access to all levels for handicapped or whatever too.
Good.
Interior access as well as handicap accessible.
Okay, that's a good point. The comment is made in building this addition and that being 2 floors here, an elevator, presently our existing building has no handicap access upstairs. And so there would be an elevator installed here that would be serviceable as a access to both existing and the new building. That's really important. We feel a little behind times in getting something like that taken care of.
What's all the stuff on the other big square? Not in the building per se, but all that.
Like all this?
Yeah, is that the parking?
Yeah, this is a parking lot here, which is enlarged from where we are right now. I think existing parking is probably something about like so. And you know, part of the reason for that expansion is because we're taking away, we're actually using quite a bit of our existing parking area to be able to make this private roadway in here. And so we have to replace that parking, and that'll just go a little bit farther back. This is all a tree, buffer, existing trees back in here that probably butts right up to your property. Yeah.
I supplied a few of those trees in for your buffer.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
Well, thank you.
And then one more question I have.
Sure.
Will the parking right out here remain then, or will that go away? So it's safer for people to drop off their children or not?
Yeah, let me describe, as you go out there, what you'll see is one lane in, basically all the way back here, and then one lane out with diagonal parking all the way through in the center and diagonal parking on the outside. Yeah, on the outside. And so what you end up with is, as people come in here, they'll go around and then they'll park, and the kids will be walking across that incoming traffic. Here, there is no proposed parking. You feel free to come up afterwards and take a look at this, but there is no proposed parking in here at all, with exception to right here. The beauty of it is, of course, this is diagonal parking, much of it probably handicap parking, handicap access. That's right onto the sidewalk, and you wouldn't have to cross traffic to get into the building.
But John, you mentioned the drop-off zone. Where did you see that?
Yeah, in this plan here, you come all the way around the corner, and all of this, it becomes a drop-off point in here. One of the things we'd like to do, of course, is, this is just a personal interest from the church standpoint, is we'd like to have some close-up parking dedicated for visitors. And so that's something that's proposed in here. But the drop-off point is all of this right here, and of course our main entrance into the church is right here. But traffic can, if you're not dropping off, the traffic doesn't have to stop. Everyone can bypass and just go back out and park in there. So it doesn't create a bottleneck in any way. Yeah.
Did that increase your parking area any?
It does. We were talking about that tonight, really trying to figure out how much does it actually increase it. With the amount of, with gravel parking, it's pretty inefficient back there. You have people parking in, not necessarily even spacing between cars because it's not lined and whatnot. We're estimating a gain, potential gain of about 100 to 150 cars or spaces, which actually overbuilds. That's more than is necessary. But that's kind of what our rough calculations would show. If you take the actual square footage, and if everyone parked in the way they were supposed to.
What's the parking area now?
In terms of total count, we're estimating somewhere around 350. I mean, if it was full, it would be around 350. I think this provision was for 5. We had it on there one time, 544.
I'm not quite clear on that. You have existing right now, how many parking places?
Best estimate?
350?
Yeah, we're saying somewhere around 350.
And you're gonna have one along that strip.
Yeah, well, we must, in our original calculations, we must have more than 350. We must be up at 400 if we used all of the space. Some of the existing parking that was originally gravel has gotten all grassed over now, so it's kind of hard to decide, is that gravel, or is that parking, or is that part of our ball field? So,
Your septic field.
no, it's not septic field, but it has kind of encroached into the ball field there. Yeah. Gets a little muddy in the wintertime.
That would take care of visitors and not just your congregation.
Right.
So,
Kelly?
during this plan, are you talking about paving it to gain those extra parking spaces as well? Or you're still leaving it as gravel and?
No, we would like to be able to pave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not in the plan?
That is part of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. We can,
Just one more comment on it.
Okay.
The county counts gravel parking lot the same as they count paved parking.
yeah, that's an important point. There's a term that the county uses called impervious. In other words, a condition that does not receive water in, roofs, sidewalks, pavement, and gravel is included in on that. So we're basically exchanging existing gravel area for paving area, and the status, as far as Island County treats it, is the same. Now, this does call for a little bit of increased parking space above and beyond what is presently gravel, what is presently roof and whatnot. And one of the things that could very easily become a requirement, I guess, if you will, is a new type of paving service that actually receives water. It's called a pervious pavement. It's called pervious pavement. But it allows water to percolate through that. We desire to stay within our existing ground coverage ratio, and that would be one of the things that would allow us to do that. Okay. I know that's kind of technical, but
When do you plan to start? When you get the approval?
no, when we have the money. The church is going to approach this on a pay-as-you-go basis. The church has never built on the basis of incurring any debt, and we want to maintain that. So as money comes in, we'll start tackling these projects sort of systematically. There are some of these improvements that we need to make to the existing structure that are the highest priority. You know, roofing existing buildings, that's a high priority. The parking is a second priority, and the Christian education building is the third priority. So as money, the best I can answer it is, as money comes in to be able to make the improvements to our existing facility and do the parking, we'll take that on. And then as money is available for us to take on the next project, which would be the building, we would start that. But we're realistically saying it could be a couple of years, 2 to 3 years possibly. But we got to start the planning process now. So. Questions? Okay. I think at this point, we will make ourselves available to hang around if you would like to talk to us one-on-one, but sensing that there are no other questions, I don't want to rush anything, but if there are any other questions, happy to take them. I will say that as a part of the public meeting process, one of the things that we will do is we'll more or less transcribe the minutes of this meeting or the tape of this meeting and make that available again to those that live within the 300-foot radius of the church. And you can expect that will probably come out after we get that done. That's within the next couple of weeks or so. And feel free to stop by and talk to us if you have any other questions. And like I say, I think this concludes our meeting, and we'll hang around if you have any other individual questions. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.